Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sue on Chat to Sue, a channel where we talk about things that we need to talk about as parents with our children, with our families, with the society as a whole, right? Today's topic is what is the difference between a narcissist, a sociopath, and a psychopath, right? There will be traits that are overlapping. But all three of these categories, the people suffer from low self-esteem, right? Most of their traits is based on lack of empathy and some grandiose and a strong sense of entitlement, right? If you you look at most of the narcissists, they're like, yeah, I'm entitled to this, right? Anyway, when we're toddlers, right, that's where everything needs to be taught when we're growing up, right? From a person, a little person who is a toddler, all the way to teenagers, right? We are taught things. And remember, our kids model us, right? They mirror us, they mirror our actions, what we do. They looking and they are mirroring us, right? They do what we do, right? Therefore we need to be very good role models, right? You can't be disciplining a child inconsistently. Today I'm in a good mood, you've done something, now we're gonna go buy ice cream or buy an iPod or give you money, right? Or I don't want to deal with your problems, I'm just going to give you money, right? The overindulgence and the underindulgence. The overindulgence, I'm giving you money, I'm giving you material things, all you want. But when it's time for you to sit down with and understand where your feelings are at, I don't do any of that because I never was taught that by my parents. So I can't model something I don't know, right? That's the reason we have 40-year, 50-year, 60-year, 70-year-old, 3-year-olds, right? With very, very low self-esteem, and the emotional capacity is either non-existent or it's very, very low because they were never taught any of it, right? And also you cannot be as a parent, be in a space where you discipline a child as if there's this big fight going on at home, right? Let's sit down and have this conversation as a parent and a child, and let's find out where you are emotionally. If you were never taught any of that, you need to go for counseling, because you will be raising a narcissist, a sociopath, or a psychopath, right? You are giving that child a route to be that, right? Another thing, parents, please don't take anything face value. Go do your own research and look at your child, know your children, have conversation with them, laugh with them, make them feel safe into their space and acknowledge their feelings. But we've got Dr. Ramani who will tell us more about this topic. Let's hear what she says.
Is the difference between a sociopath, a psychopath, and a narcissist? Here to answer this intense question is Dr. Ramani. Help us out here.
Well, it's, again, there's a lot of overlap, but the fact is a lot of people are using these terms interchangeably.
And should they be?
Sociopath, they psychopath. No, they shouldn't. They're
Okay.
different things, okay? One rule of thumb to remember right off the bat: every psychopath is narcissistic, but not every narcissist is psychopathic. Make sense? There's your key difference. A narcissist is somebody who lacks empathy, is grandiose, is entitled, is constantly seeking validation, is arrogant. It's a disorder of self-esteem, and they have trouble regulating their self-esteem. But when a narcissist does a bad thing, they feel a fair amount of guilt and shame. More shame than guilt, frankly, because they're concerned about how other people view them. Shame is a public emotion. So they don't like being viewed negatively in the public eye or by other people. That's where the shame comes from. But they'll feel a little bad. Like if they cheat on their wife, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Psychopath's a different animal. They're all of those things except no guilt, no shame. Wow. They don't feel remorse when they do something bad. Wow. So they're great serial killers.
Oh.
Hired assassins, people who are going to go in and literally sort of gut a business. These are your guys. They're like, I don't care who gets hurt. They'd say that and they'd mean it. Okay, where a narcissist is like, I hope no one gets hurt. Okay? The difference between the psychopath and the sociopath is the one where most people get confused, because the sociopath is a lot like the psychopath. They do bad things and they don't care. Okay? Here's the key difference. A psychopath is born and a sociopath is made. Okay, that's the key. So a psychopath, in fact, we know in the research on psychopathy, which has also been called antisocial personality disorder in our diagnostic manual, these are people who are actually believed to have slightly different autonomic nervous systems. Our autonomic nervous system is actually that part that holds our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight system. So when our autonomic nervous system for a normal person gets charged up, which it would if we broke a rule, if we did something embarrassing or rude, if we ran through a red light, our heart starts racing. We sweat, our pupils get wide, we look around because we're afraid of the consequence. A psychopath doesn't have that same kind of arousal. That's why they're able to lie on lie detector tests. That's how they get away with it. They don't have that same kind of arousal. So where you or I may go on a roller coaster, feel that sense of excitement, we need to get that arousal in a good way. We don't like feeling it when we do something wrong. They don't feel it.
So do they get stressed?
No, not in the same way.
So if they're driving, because if I'm driving and I see police sirens coming behind me, I mean, it is a full-on, my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to get pulled over. But a psychopath would see that and go, oh, I'm going to get pulled over.
Cool as could be. They could have a dead body in the trunk and they wouldn't change.
And so they pull over, they get the ticket, and they don't care.
No, they don't care.
And they pay the ticket?
And maybe not. They'll even probably get an attorney to get him off or say, yeah, you know, my understanding of your state laws is you can't really be doing this. And they'll be cool as can be.
And this is a difference in their
They're actually
their
how
makeup.
their nervous systems are wired and their brains are. There's actually been interesting research done with PET scans where you can see brain function and what
Not just a clarification, not PET like dogs and cats, PET scans.
Positron emission tomography scans of the brain, which show brain functioning, if you will. And what they see is that the section of the brain that serves empathy, that doesn't naturally light up in them. And you can actually teach them to be empathic for a minute, but it doesn't last. A lot of psychopaths who commit violent crimes end up in jail, and the ones who commit more like white-collar crimes, I guess they end up as multi-billionaires because they're willing to do really, really rough stuff in their business and get through like a cartel leader or something like that, call for the killings of other people. Now, their interesting counterpart are the sociopaths. Psychopaths born. They tend to, their belief is that they may very well have this might be genetic. In fact, psychopaths often have fathers who have lots of antisocial tendencies. Now, how much of it is learned, how much of it is genetic, it's a little bit harder to suss out. But we do see that there is that difference in your true psychopath. They also tend to have really glib, shallow charm. They tend to be really intelligent. That's why they get away with stuff. If they were
So they've learned behavior to assimilate into society.
Oh yeah.
But it's all a facade.
It's all a facade. They're so charming.
So if they're born this way, would a 3-year-old then not get stressed out if it got scared? So that's incredible.
So what we see when we diagnose antisocial personality disorder, which is sort of our diagnostic equivalent of being a psychopath, in order to get that diagnosis, you have to have shown a pattern prior to the age of 15 of things like truancy, violence towards other kids, stealing, skipping school.
And not felt bad about it.
Setting fires. They just do it. They don't care. And that before the age of 15. So it's a long-standing pattern. That's what makes us call them a psychopath or having antisocial personality. Now, This is different than sociopathy.
Yes, okay.
Sociopathy, they look a lot like the psychopaths. The difference is they were made. So some examples here. The kid who grows up in a really, 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 really rough neighborhood and learns criminality to get by, or learns to be a bully, or gets involved with sort of like the wrong kids and uses a lot of muscle because that's survivalism. But it's not necessarily always comfortable for them. They just learn it. It's the person who grows up with a father who teaches them the business and teaches them how to break the rules. Would they start sweating and have their heart race if they got pulled over? They might. They may not feel so good about it. They'll be a little bit more uncomfortable with it, but in time they learn it. And it's almost like they get trained in not being as aroused by it. Listen, if you broke enough rules, if you lived under certain conditions of lawlessness long enough, you'd adjust to that new world order, if you will. That's what the sociopath does. And so they're the person who someone who said he was actually a great kid until he got to high school. And then it seems like he got in with the wrong kids. That feels more like the sociopath. Wow. Okay, that's almost like a training that might happen from within the family, within their community, within even the job they get, some cases even within some form of military training.
Have you had sociopaths and psychopaths as clients?
Not really, no. They don't tend to come in for therapy. They don't see any benefit to it. The only time you would tend to see psychopaths or sociopaths come into therapy with any consistency is if they were court ordered. So
I thought you were going to say couples therapy.
No, God, no. It's because they're court ordered. So the judge will make that a condition of release kind of thing, or they're within prisons and jails and getting some treatment in there.
This is so incredibly fascinating to me. If a psychopath goes to jail, he isn't upset about going to jail?
In some ways, it becomes a cost of doing business. But it's also, they're not happy about it. Psychopaths and to some degree sociopaths don't think about consequences. That's why they pull really penny ante silly crimes like holding up a liquor store. Basically, I need $150, here's a liquor store, it's open, let's go get the money kind of thing. So it's like they act first and think later, so they often don't plan in terms of consequences. That's why they have a tendency to lie, cheat, steal, and they tend to have very inconsistent work histories because they're not able to hold a job.
Yeah, of
aliases. It's definitely it's more of a griftery kind of a space.
So we've talked in previous videos about how to cope while dating a narcissist. Yeah. If you find yourself dating a sociopath or a psychopath, is there any coping, or you just got to get out?
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
It could actually be a very dangerous relationship.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. In fact, even with the narcissistic piece, I've done research and work in the area of domestic violence, or what's also called intimate partner violence. Most people who perpetrate domestic violence are either narcissistic or psychopathic, and so there's a danger there. In other words, they will dispose of you if you get in their way.
I want to share a story with you to get your feedback. This was told to me by a friend, and she said in college she dated a guy for a year, but the guy started to get just a little weird and they broke up. For the next year, he courted her and did everything she wished he had done the first year. Showed up on time, brought her gifts, blah, blah, blah. They started dating again. He was perfect for a year. They went to Thanksgiving at her family's house. He was perfect to her parents. Just became the perfect man for her because he knew what she wanted. And after a year, on the 1-year anniversary, he broke up with her and said, I've been playing you this whole time because I wanted to crush your heart.
Yep.
I am not actually behaving this way, or this isn't real. I've been faking it for a year just so I can crush you. Would that be
That's more psychopathic.
Psychopath.
That's more psychopathic. Or sociopathic is more likely,
But if they have no empathy.
Well, this is fascinating, right? But as parents, we need to be very aware of how we talk to our kids, because that matters, right? If a child comes to you and say, I'm feeling sad, right? Acknowledge their feelings and understand that you doing that, you are building this child, right? But yeah, do not take any of this face value. Go do your own research as well and know your children, right? Knowing your children will help to build their tomorrows for themselves, right? When they are adults, you are building a journey for these children to be amazing adults, right? But thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for your support till we meet again. Sending you much love and light. Bye.